Millions of Indians rushed out to cash machines like this one to try and draw out 100 rupee notes. With the banks and ATMs shut on Wednesday, many feared that they would have no cash at all. But in spite of the inconvenience, most here supported the Prime Minister's move.
In the short term, it will be a bit painful for the citizens of India, but in the long term, it will help us as a country.
This is a good move, but how would he stop black money again from circulation if he again issues 2,000?
The Indian Prime Minister used to work at a tea shop like this one. He was a chaiwala, so he knows the importance of cash in businesses here in India. The problem is that much of that cash is never declared to the taxman. He's trying to cut down India's cash-based black economy. So will it work? Mudha Pateria is one of India's leading business analysts.
The critical point is fear. And initially, because there was a relative absence of fear, people said, 30% is too high. And the fear is not that we are going to jail. The fear is that all our hard-earned money will effectively become worthless. That's the biggest fear. And to that extent, I think the compliance for a 30% tax and effectively taking a good night's sleep is going to become far more popular in modern India.
The drums have been beating in Kolkata for the last few weeks because it's the festive period. It's a good time for businesses because people spend lots of money, but that could now change because there's a lack of cash in the economy. Ramjeet Ray runs a business here in Kolkata.
People are going to they'll have to figure out what's going to happen next. So there's some amount of uncertainty which will slow down the economy. A lot of foreign countries and brands have come into the country based on the purchasing power, which is based on the black economy. So the equations are going to change.
I'm outside a branch of the State Bank of India. There are long queues here of some pretty angry people because they've been standing for hours and so far they haven't got any money. The bank inside is saying they've run out. Let's go and speak to some of the people in the queue in front of me.
It's quite chaotic right now. Now we are facing problem too much regarding this matter. From nowhere I am getting money. I don't know what to do right now.
There is no sufficient money. I am waiting here for a long time. So there is problem. I also have no money in my hand. At home there is no money. There is money 500 or 1,000. There is no 100 money.
A lot of the shops around this bank are struggling at the moment because people don't have cash to buy their products. They don't accept debit cards or credit cards. People here support Mr. Modi's idea of trying to get rid of black money. But if banks like this don't get more money soon, that support is going to turn to anger.
BBC's Rahul Tandon. The 1,000 rupee note is a common sight in India. It's worth around $15. So will its departure achieve the goal of cracking down on the black economy? Madhavan Narayan is a senior editor at the Hindustan Times.
The important point to note is that India has had two demonetization attempts in the past, one going far back during the British rule in 1946 and then another one in 1978. In those times, the size of the rupee notes that were demonetized, the amounts were huge by then standards, so a lot of poor people were untouched. But today you can find 500 rupee notes even in the hands of, let's say, a rickshaw puller or a small cook or somebody, and therefore a lot of ordinary people are severely affected, at least in terms of day-to-day convenience. It's about a pain, wasting several hours to get an amount of money which would be not more than what they would earn in a day.
And this sort of goes to the heart of the problem, really, doesn't it? Because actually an awful lot of ordinary people in India don't pay tax.
Yeah, that is a big issue. In spite of 25 years of economic reform and a huge amount of growth, and India becoming the world's fastest growing major economy, the tax to GDP ratio is pretty low. There have been various estimates of the black economy in India, but a couple of years ago it was roughly estimated, for instance, that about $600 billion every year, which is variously estimated between 20 to 30% of the GDP, is the black economy, of which about a third should have accrued to the government as tax revenue, which means $200 billion a year. That's a huge amount. So even if a fraction of it comes to the government thanks to the sudden surprise or shock and awe strategy adopted by the finance ministry, it should look good for the government and cut the fiscal deficit and above all send a strong political message that hey, what we promised in the election manifesto is actually coming good.
Surely this is going to undermine public confidence in the paper money, the rupees, issued by the Indian government. And in the end, people who've got money that they don't want the government to know about are going to go back to the oldest currency of all, and that's gold.
Oh, that's right. Gold prices did shoot up yesterday, and gold remains an economically fungible global currency, and therefore it is certainly something that will give rise to gold being used as currency. But however, it's important to remember that gold doesn't give you returns. Gold doesn't earn interest like bank deposits, and it's not lucrative like, say, real estate or stocks.
My underlying point, though, was that this is surely not going to do much for confidence in the rupee among the general public.
I'm not sure of that. On the contrary, it could be that the government's strategy to make millions of people come into the banking system and use credit cards and mobile wallets. And the important point is that those, if you have a smartphone, and India has now 200 million people with smartphones and they're getting cheaper, the government might hope that even those who are not really interested in the free bank accounts that the government is handing out will be still lured by the convenience of mobile wallets, with the added advantage that, well, you're not going to be surprised someday by the government that what you're holding in your hand is just a piece of paper and not real cash.
Madhavan Narayan at the Hindustan Times. The so-called Hound of Hounslow has pleaded guilty in a Chicago courtroom to helping trigger the Wall Street flash crash of 2010. Almost $1 trillion was wiped off the value of the US stock market when it suddenly fell 1,000 points before recovering a short time later. Navinder Sarao lost his battle against extradition to the US after apparently engineering the fall over the internet from a bedroom in his parents' house near Heathrow Airport in the UK. Darren Lazarus is following the case for the Wall Street Journal. I asked him why Mr. Sarao had now decided to plead guilty.
Well, one would imagine there's a plea bargain there. Obviously, this is speculation, but I would imagine that he's decided that it's best to work with the authorities, and maybe those 30 years will be reduced down to a shorter sentence, but ultimately we won't know for a while.
Because I've been looking at a photo of his house in London where the crime was done from, and it's so ordinary looking. This does not look like the place where $1 trillion was wiped off the value of the US stock market from. It's incredible.
I know, it's fascinating. This is a guy nicknamed the Hound of Hounslow. He's youngish. He was 36, 37 at the time, and yeah, semi-detached house. Apparently, when he used to go to work, he used to kind of wear a hoodie, have his headset on. Quite quirky behaviour. One of my colleagues wrote about how he would get into work after 10 o'clock, so he would avoid